Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to travel through a wormhole together. Let's do it. All right, so today the plan is we're going to make a wormhole, sort of like the going through one. Like, what does it look like if you're traveling through space-time, kind of a effect thing. Yeah, just a reminder, join the Discord if you haven't already. Link is in the description of this video. It's also, if you're on Twitch, it's in the About section. If you go to the About section of the page, you can join up over there and suggest tutorials of your own. That's where this one comes from. Today, someone suggested this tutorial. Yeah, feel free to pop in and give me ideas for stuff to make. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get started. I will do the traditional hit A, X, and delete. I did have someone ask me that in chat, why don't I create a startup file that just has everything gone? And I personally just couldn't believe they had actually even suggested something, you know, just horrible as that. Because I would feel so incomplete without the select all delete routine that we've had for generations. So whatever. What we're going to do first is I'm going to shift A and we're going to create a torus. And before we click off or do anything, I'm going to open up the torus controls here, which are slightly behind my head. Let's move it out of the way for you a little bit. And I'm just going to think about how many segments I want. Actually, it doesn't matter too much, but I might do my minor radius. I'll bring that up a bit. Actually, no, we'll just, look, we can keep it default. It doesn't really matter. I will peek inside though. So I'm going to go inside of it and just have a look at what the size of things. Yeah, this should be fine. This is going to be our wormhole and we're going to have it kind of just travel in a loop. And we're going to stick our camera inside of it. So let's go ahead and get set up. I'm going to hit Shift A, create a new camera. I'm going to hit 0 on my number pad to jump into it, or you can also just click the little camera button. I'm going to grab this little drop-out menu at that little triangle icon. You can also, well, I'll also turn on my screencast keys so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to go to View, the View tab, and I'm going to click on Lock Camera to View, and I will zoom out and come around and position my camera inside the space here, and just something like this, I think. Now I'm going to click on my camera and then I'm going to come down here to the camera tab that appears and I'm going to increase my focal length. I'm going to come out to like 22, something like that. That'll just really expand our view. I'll also go to viewport display and I'll take passport 2 and I'll just turn that up so I can just focus on what my render is going to look like. I'll unclick camera to view and I'll zoom in like this. I'm going to select my torus. I'm going to right click and go shade smooth. And I'm going to come to modifiers under the little wrench tab and I'm going to say, let's grab a subdivision surface. I'll pop it up to 2 and then I'm going to grab a displacement modifier. Where are you? Displacement. There, displacement. I'm going to click on new to create a new texture. And then I'm going to click on this little button to jump over to my texture tab. Also, I'll rename the texture. I'll call it wormhole. And I'm going to use not an image or movie. I'm going to click the type here and we're going to go to a, what could we do? I don't know. We could let's just go with clouds. We'll keep these settings for now. I'll come back over to my wrench. You can see here it says wormhole because that's the name of the texture that we're using. And I'm going to take my strength down. I'm going to hold down shift and drag. And holding down shift will decrease the amount, the speed at which I drag things down. So yeah, just kind of pull this down a little bit. And then I think I'll jump back over to my texture and I'll make it a bit bigger. So hold down shift, I'll keep dragging up, maybe like 1.08 and back up to here and increase the strength a little bit like that. I'm just creating some irregularity in the surface of our torus. What I want to do is where it says coordinates, right now they're set to local, right? So if you look here, if I rotate my torus, right, it should rotate my torus on the Z. It's going to travel around our camera and we're going to have a few issues here. Let's find one of those moments where we clip through so we can get our camera positioned a little bit better. Pipe that in like this. I might rotate over a touch. All right, let's see if that works a little better. Yeah, there we go. So you can see how it looks kind of cool. All right, so now the next part of this effect is that we need to really kind of figure out the shader because a lot of this is going to be driven by the shader. So let me untick camera to view and I will select my torus object. I'll go ahead and rename it Wormhole. Let's drag here. We'll go down to the bottom corner. We'll click and drag to make 2 windows. I'll come up here and I'll grab my shader editor. And I'm going to switch from object to world. And I'm going to pop out here outside of the wormhole and I'll switch to rendered view. Now I'm rendering with Eevee at the moment, and I'll turn on bloom and screen space reflections. And I'll open up screen space reflections and I'll turn on refraction. Okay, we're gonna see if we can use some refraction to get a cool effect. In our world shader, I'm gonna make some stars. So we'll just do the classic noise texture into a color ramp. So we'll take the factor into the factor, color into the color of our background shader. And then we're gonna take our scale up to 600, and then we're gonna smash this right down and bring this one up. And that will create a bunch of stars out there. Now, if I jump back into my camera and I select my wormhole, go to my object shader, click new to create a new shader for this guy. All right, now I want to use refraction to basically make this wormhole transparent and cause it to refract the stars that are all around it in an interesting way along its surface. If that sounds confusing, it's like if you look through a glass of water, you can see through the water, you can see the light being refracted and it kind of bends around the surface. So I kind of want to bend light around this thing, right? In order to do that, I've got to turn refraction on. Reflection. That's the technical term. So in order to do that, I've got to do a couple of settings because I'm in Eevee. And in Cycles, it just works out of the box, but Eevee, you got to add some extra stuff. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn on screen space reflections in my render settings in my render tab. I'm going to make sure refraction is turned off. It's turned off by default. Make sure it's turned on. So we're going to turn that on. And then over here in my shader settings from the wormhole, I need to come to options right here, this bottom tab. Usually it's open to node at the start. Come down to options. In blend mode, we're going to switch to alpha hashed. And shadow mode, we're just going to set to none because we don't need a wormhole to cast shadows because that's just weird. And right here, I'll open this up so you can see it. It says screen space refraction. We also have to turn this on as well. So with all those settings on, things will begin to work. Now we need to take transmission, and we're going to turn transmission all the way up to 1. Okay. Now transmission is the term for letting light transmit through an object. So if you have a solid object that has a bit of transmission, light's able to pass through it. So by turning that all the way up to 1 means light can fully pass through this object. But we're still not going to see anything yet. The IOR, which is the index of refraction, it's a specific value that works just with transmission. We're going to set that to, well, so we'll just leave it for now. 1.03 is fine, but we need to take the roughness of our object because right now that's blurring all the light that's trying to come through. And we're going to turn it right down. And as we turn it down, you can see we start getting this cool space thing. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit so we get some blurring on these. Now, if I hold down shift and move the IOR, you see we're going to get some cool effects. We can play around with this until we get something that looks like a wormhole. Not that I've been in one, but all right. Now you can see as we rotate the wormhole, we're going to get this really cool effect as everything refracts around it. I might go ahead and set up the rotation of our wormhole to kind of be just a continuous thing. So I'm just rotating on the Z. That's all I want to do. So I'm going to come here and I'm pretty sure we're going to go positive. Yeah, let's just jump out and just have a look at that. Yeah, positive is what we want. I'm just going to do this shortcut for creating a driver, which is to type the pound key and then type in whatever variable you want. And one of the preset variables within Blender is the word frame. So if I do pound frame, it's going to take the frame number of my timeline and insert it at this point. So it's going to take the frame number, convert it into a degree. It's not going to say 1 because this is in degrees, so it's converting. That's way too fast. So let's multiply this. We can do all kinds of stuff in these drivers. So I'll just multiply it by 0.01. There we go. So that gives us this nice, slow, gradual effect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is create some color variation across the surface of this wormhole. So I'm going to create a color ramp. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it some psychedelic wormhole-y kind of colors. We'll just start with those two. I might make one more, actually. Let's do one that's like a dark purple. It should be good. Now let's create a noise texture and a texture coordinate node. So we'll take this and we're going to take the object coordinate and we'll stick it into the vector. And then we'll take the factor and stick it into the factor. And then we're going to take the color and stick it into the emission. Now we've got a ton of stuff going on here. We're going to make this a lot smaller. So I'm going to take my scale and bring it right down to like maybe 0.1. You can see what that does is it spreads out the noise. It makes it so big now that it kind of covers the entire length in a way that just creates some nice subtle variation. Now I can turn up my roughness and detail a little bit, and that will give us even more variation. But I don't want too much because I don't want it to feel like too much of a repeating pattern. I might bring these in a little bit closer. Looks pretty good. I think it'd be cool if the noise texture was traveling across its surface. So I feel like we're seeing way too much pink, and I might brighten up the saturation on this purple. All right, let's grab a mapping node and drop it in right here. So we're gonna have this thing travel along the Y direction. And we want it to kind of move through at a rate that's gonna be a little bit faster than what it's moving. So I'll just set this to 0 here, and I'll set a keyframe. I'll go to the end, and I'll just type in 360. We also need to take those keyframes, and where are they? I select this object, there they are, and then I right click on them. I can go interpolation linear, so that means they're not going to speed up and slow down. Set this to 100. Just find a good speed first. Set this to 10. Yeah, that's cool. Just creates a little bit of variation in this. All right, so next we're gonna add some like light bands to this. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take texture coordinate node, duplicate it, take my noise texture, duplicate it, take my color amp, duplicate that, bring it down. And I'll take the object coordinate, bring it into the vector, and I'll take the factor into the factor, just like before. And then we're gonna mix it together here with this. So I'm gonna go for a mix RGB node, drop that right here, and take color, pipe it into the bottom. And I'm gonna turn it off mix. We're gonna switch it to add, and I'll turn the factor all the way up to 1. Now I'm gonna change these colors up a little bit. So I'm gonna get rid of this bright pink one. I'm gonna make this one black actually. And I'll take this second one and I'll just delete this second one by hitting that minus key there. I'll drag this up here and I'll grab the blue one here and I'll, right here, the V, that stands for vibrancy. I'm gonna turn that up to like 10. That's gonna make it really hot and like glowy. So if I turn this down, you can see it's really gonna get quite strong as I bring that in together. Now I don't wanna get sections like this where it's too huge. So I might turn the scale down a bit more and bring this around. And you can animate this stuff too, so it could also give you some cool effects. Bring the detail down a little bit, maybe bring up a little bit of distortion as well. It could be nice. I feel like it could be a little bit hotter, so I'm going to turn this up maybe to 20. Bring that down some. All right, now I want to take this system right here. We're going to do two things. I'm going to take this object, our wormhole object, and I'm actually going to hit Shift D to, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to pop out of render view. I'm going to pop out of my camera. And I'm actually going to create another torus. I'm going to go Shift A, torus. It's going to automatically have the same settings we had before with this other one, except it's moved it off over here, which isn't going to be as convenient. I might put my Shift S cursor to world origin to stick my cursor back there. Now Shift A, torus, now it's going to be perfectly over. Now I just wanted this one to be a little bit bigger than my other one. So I'm going to take my minor radius and I'm just going to turn it up to encompass the other one there, like this, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I will take this second torus and I'm going to create a new shader for it. I'll call it stars. And I'll just delete the principled BSDF and I'll grab an emission shader. And I'm going to do the same thing I did in my world shader. So I'm going to grab, in fact, I could just pop over to the world shader, grab these guys, copy them, head back to my object, paste them here, plug the color into the color and emission into the surface. Now, if I go into shaded view, you'll see we get the same effect now, but on the surface of this object. So we've got stars on this object. So now if I jump into here, my idea is if I take my transmission and turn it back up, now I've got two toruses, right? So I can actually rotate this other one and it's going to cause the stars to travel as well. So let's just check. What speed did we do this one at? This one's at frame number times 0.01. So let's do this one at, let's go pound frame, and let's multiply it by, instead of 0.1, let's go 0.005. So it's half as fast. And there we go. It's going to be kind of a cool effect. Now, it's a little hard to see in real-time playback because of the way Eevee is resolving the image. But the effect here is that the stars are traveling at a slightly slower rate than the surrounding wormhole. Now, another cool thing we could try and do is take a texture coordinate node and a mapping node, and we could drop, let's drop the generated onto the vector and the vector into the vector. And let's see what happens if we rotate the stars. I'm gonna hold down shift so I can see the effect. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm just seeing. Yeah, so rotating the stars, I don't know if you can see that with YouTube compression, but it's basically giving us some weird stretching, which is pretty cool. We could also try experimenting with the Z scale and like the Y scale, see what this looks like. If I drop this to like 0.1, it's going to stretch out the stars and make them look more like kind of a warp hole effect, you know, which is pretty cool. Let's go 0.01. Is that really going to do it? No. 0.1, 1 on the X. I'm going to try, I'm going to see what it looks like if these are actually going a little faster. So I'm going to go 0.02. Yeah, that looks better. That looks better. All right, now I want this glowy bit to be morphing and changing as well. So we're going to grab the glowy bit, and we could either have it morph on the W value like this, or we could grab a texture, a mapping node. We could drop it here and see what kind of effects we can get with this, which I think will probably give us a better result. So if I grab it on the Z, it's not going to look very good. The X, though, is going to be nice because it's going to make it feel like it's traveling. Yeah, so let's do a frame, pound frame, times 0.1, let's say. And we want it to go the other way. So times negative 0.1. It's pretty cool. Not quite what we're after. I need to turn the scale up, I think, and slow it down. It's nice. That's pretty cool looking, actually. Yeah, it looks nice. I feel like that emphasizes the speed a bit more. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken my scale to about 1.3 on the noise texture. We still have the frame noise being animated here at negative 0.01 multiplied by the frame number. And with this color ramp here, I've just kind of tweaked my colors a little bit, added in this darker blue, and just shifted this around a little bit to more of like a rich blue color. And I've played with my color ramp some to kind of get these colors just in the right spot for the effect. Now I've got my transmission turned all the way up, and I'm liking the way it looks actually with the stars. Now another thing that's going to look cool is if we take our camera and we come over here to the rotation, and let's see, if we rotate on the Y, we kind of constantly rotate on the Y. So let's do the same thing, pound frame multiply 0.01. And now that's going to help us kind of constantly like twist through this thing, which will give it a really nice, you know, sense of travel, which is cool. Now, what would happen if we stuck a light in our scene? Let's this. All right, I'm going to stick this light just in front of the camera so I can see it. I don't know if this is going to do anything, but it might. And turn this up, increase the radius maybe, and set it to a cool color. Something maybe a little different from what we're working with all these others. So like this maybe purple color. Oh, that's cool. Wow. You see, the bigger we go with this, I'm going to turn shadow off as well. We don't need shadows. It's going to spread that light out. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. So again, if you're watching this, you're probably watching the 30-minute cut down version or 20-minute cut down version. What I do is I always do these as live streams. So this one is about an hour and a half long, hour and 40 minutes long. We tried a bunch of things. We experiment. We go down a lot of rabbit holes. We do a lot of extra stuff. And then I kind of go through and I edit this into a proper tutorial that's just got some key highlights that really shows you how to get to the final image. So that's what's going on with that. So if you'd like to get a hold of these full live streams, you can find them over on Patreon if you become a member there, or you can find them if you become a member on YouTube at the All Access Pass level and higher. And you can get this project file as well on Patreon if you join at the 2nd tier, so consider that. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button for me. And don't forget to leave a comment on YouTube as well, and give me a follow over on Twitch if that's where you're at. So thanks for finding me and thanks for watching. Hope you learned some cool things today and had a good time. I'll catch you in the next tutorial, and until then, have a fantastic week. See you later. Bye.